Welcome to the STEM Pathways podcast, where we delve into the fascinating world of science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm your host, Rohan Sharma, a passionate explorer of all things STEM. Each episode, we bring you captivating stories, cutting-edge research, and inspiring interviews with experts and enthusiasts who are pushing the boundaries of innovation. Whether you're a student or professional, or just curious about how the world works, join us as we unlock the mysteries of the universe and explore the endless possibilities of STEM. Let's get started. Today, I'll be interviewing Thomas Bourne, who recently received a Bachelor's and Masters from Stanford in Electrical and Electronics Engineering. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Great to be
So to
here.
get started, I wanted to ask what you did right out of high school.
Right out of high school, I actually did my first stint at college. I did junior college for a little bit, and then went to Cal State Monterey Bay, which was my local university at the time. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, so kind of decided I just wanted to work, and joined a police department as an administrative job. So school didn't really work out for me the first time, but that's okay. Then I kind of focused my motivations. So
Yeah. And what did you do with the police department?
I had a job. It was called I was known as a police clerk, or police records. So I maintained like all the reports, processed packets for like the DA's office or the city attorney. And then also provided officers with like any sort of like records they wanted. So if like an officer wants to know about, say, an individual that they pulled over, they would call us up on the radio, and they would like switch from dispatch to us, and then they want to know about any, say if they had any existing criminal history, or like what their driver's record is, stuff like that. So
Yeah. And what did you do after working in the police department?
I really wanted to join the army from a pretty young age. I kind of held off for a bit, mostly because my parents didn't want me to just enlist. But after I'd worked at the police department for a while, I decided I really wanted to try. It was always my dream to kind of be a soldier. And so I had a very specific idea of what I wanted to do in the army, and I decided to go for it. So I joined the army at 24, and yeah, I did that for quite a bit of time.
And what kind of jobs did you hold there?
So I was in special forces, better known as Green Berets. I joined as what's called like an 18 X-ray. You join the army with a contract to it guarantees you a shot to go to what's called special forces selection, which is like essentially a tryout for special forces. And then if you make it, then you go to the course to learn how to become one. And if you don't, then you become infantry. So fortunately for me, I made it. And I spent quite a few years in special forces.
Yeah. And what did you do after special forces?
So I got out in 2018. Around then, I did one more year at National Guard, which is like part time in the army. I really wanted to go back to school. I knew that I wanted to do some sort of engineering, probably electrical engineering. My background in when I was in the army was communications, and I'd always been interested in technology. So I decided to try to pursue an education along those lines. I joined a junior college back here in the Bay Area, which is where I'm from, and it was Foothill College in Los Altos. And I did that for a year, and then transferred over to Stanford to do electrical engineering.
Yeah. Actually, I want to talk back when you were in the army and doing communications. How are you involved with technology there?
Yeah, sure. All kinds of stuff. So the cool thing about being on a special forces team is like you really kind of have to handle whatever your job is. Special forces team members have very specific jobs, whether that's weapons. You're expected to do all the basics, which is shoot, move, communicate, and do all that stuff. All the normal stuff a regular infantry unit would do, but you also have a job on top of that, which is your specialty. That might be weapons engineering, which is like involves like explosives or like building stuff. And I was a communications guy, so communications really encompasses like anything on the team that has to do with electricity. So like whether I would be maintaining the team's radios, making sure we had the right frequencies for our missions, put in put in the crypto for making sure we had some secure communications. Some of the devices we had were um, like little cell phones or something, like something that have like maps and stuff. So I'd make sure those are all networked and all good. There's a lot of like larger communications devices for like when we got to communicate back to like our commanders or something. So like we set up like little mini like offices like where we work out of, in the field. And so I was in charge of all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So moving on to Stanford, what was your experience like there while getting your bachelor's?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, for me, I was a little bit older, in my 30s, by the time I went back. So that was a little bit of like a culture shock for me, but there's quite a good like transfer and veteran cohort at Stanford. So it was definitely a little strange, but it was great because I was like focused and I knew what I wanted to do. Um, I'm definitely more the person that likes to like be outside and like doing things outside. So like sitting in the classroom for me was tough, but definitely challenging. But I learned so much, and Stanford was such a great place to be. So
Yeah. And what made you want to go and get a master's?
uh really it was just so as a bachelor's in engineering, electrical engineering, you really only get to focus on kind of like the general things. I took like the information, I think it's called like the information and signals or systems path. I'll have to double check on that, but so you don't really get to like focus on anything in particular. As with a master's, you get to kind of like hone in on something more specific. And so I did like a master's in electrical engineering on communications as a focus. And so I really, I tried at Stanford, I really tried to like explore other kind of things I might be interested in, but always came back to communications. So I stuck with it and kind of did that. It was also just kind of like an economical thing too, because we had something called the co-term program where you could do or like graduate classes and your undergrad classes at the same time.
Mhm.
And so you really could like maximize your time there, take some like very interesting classes and advanced classes, like even when you're still working on your bachelor's. And so really the amount of time I was there, I did like a bachelor's and a master's in 4 years. So
Yeah. And being out of the military, do they also help pay for graduate school?
yeah, so the GI Bill is great for graduate school, right? Especially graduate school, I would say. I was able to do a fellowship at Stanford, so that helped pay for some of my tuition and other expenses. Um, Something that a lot of people don't really know about Stanford is like if you go there as an undergrad, they will pretty much it's a tiered tuition program. So like if people are like applying to Stanford and really unsure about the cost, it's actually like a really great place to go because they will pretty much pay for everything depending on your like family's income. So and it's pretty ridiculous like how high that level is. So I think, don't quote me on this, but I think when I last looked, it was like if your family's income is like under $180,000 a year, like Stanford will cover all your tuition. Um, So yeah, it's funny because like UC Berkeley's our rival, and they're a public school, right? So they always make fun of Stanford for being so expensive and stuff. But like, I didn't have to use my GI Bill for my undergrad like at all. I did for 1 year because I wanted some like pocket money, but I didn't have to use it for my undergrad at all. That was totally covered by Stanford, and that was the case for anybody that needed financial aid. So
Yeah.
definitely recommend it if you can get it.
Yeah. So when you say that you did the combined program, which is called a fellowship?
The co-term program, yeah.
Oh, okay. So how like towards the end, so your last year, was that mostly just master's classes, or was it still like very mixed in the whole time?
My last year was completely graduate, yeah. So, but that's not always how it goes. It just depends on what you do. I started my co-term, mm, I guess like the end of my second year is like when I started my co-term stuff. So I pretty much had two graduations like you normally would. Like I graduated with my bachelor's in 2022, and then I graduated my master's in 2023. But I had classmates that they pretty much did it all together, kind of extended it all out. And like, so they finished undergrad classes and then their graduate classes at the same time. And they walked at, one graduation. So
Yeah. So what did you do after graduating from Stanford?
yeah, so actually during my time at Stanford, I interned at Lockheed Martin for 2 summers. One summer it was COVID, so I just took advantage of like taking classes during the summer and didn't do any internships. And then the next summer, I was fortunate enough to get an internship at Lockheed Martin and got on a really interesting program. They kept me around like throughout the school year, just kind of part time while I took classes, and then in the summers I would do full time. And then uh, after I graduated, I just transitioned to full time. Same position, but that program was kind of ending. So um, yeah, so I just kind of transitioned into Lockheed Martin full time, and it just made sense for me. And I'm just really interested in. I work at Lockheed Martin Space in Sunnyvale, and I'm really interested in aerospace, space stuff. That's one of the paths I explore at Stanford. Is like, do I really want to be an electrical engineer, or could I potentially become an aerospace engineer? But just made more sense to me to become an electrical engineer and kind of do aerospace things. So I ended up at Lockheed Martin Space, and I've been doing that for the past year full time.
Yeah. And what are you working on there?
All sorts of programs. Some of them are confidential, but
Mhm.
uh, my position is a research scientist, and I work in an organization called the ATC, which is called the Advanced Technology Center. And a lot of what they do is internal research and development, or customer research and development. So like if we have a sponsor that wants to like research a particular product or just technology, uh, they'll sponsor that for Lockheed Martin to do. Or if Lockheed feels like we really want to know more about this particular technology area, then they'll do like what's called an IRAD, or a internal research and development program that you can kind of do that. So that's mainly what I do. That's my position. But I also get loaned out to like um, if there's like not a lot of IRAD to do, I'll get loaned out to engineering projects, where I can get to work on stuff that's potentially going to space or stuff like that. So
Yeah. So for my last question, I wanted to ask if you had to give one piece of advice to someone who's still in high school, wanting to follow a similar career path as you, where they go into the military knowing that they want to do some sort of engineering or STEM field afterwards, what would you say?
for that particular person, I mean, I would say to anybody, just kind of like realize what you want to do. When I was young and coming out of high school, I had really no idea. I knew I wanted to join the army, but everyone was telling me not to do that. So I held off, and I wouldn't say I regretted waiting, but like I kind of wish I had just went with my gut, like what I wanted to do. Um, it really worked out for me, and I'm glad I took the path that I did. But I would say if you want to do something, and you're motivated to do something, you should just do that. If you have no idea what to do, um, like college is a great way to kind of figure out what to do, but maybe that's not right for you, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Um, there are tons of paths to get to where you want to go, so and figure out what you want to do. So there's definitely no shame in doing the junior college thing. I totally think that's a great way to do it. Uh, there's no shame in joining the army or the military in general. Um, yeah, it's just a journey, and it's as long as you're moving forward, then you'll get to where you want to go.
Yeah. All right then. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks, Rohan. Thanks for having me.